What's up, everybody? Former Glory Day here. We are back again with another Predecessor patch 1.12 video. In this video, we are going to be taking a look at the support changes that are coming in patch 1.12. If you're looking for mid laners or junglers, we already have a video out for that. And we will have videos coming for carries and for offlaners. If you have seen either one of those videos, you know I'm not here to waste your time. I want to get right down to it. So if you would, please consider liking and subscribing to this video, and let's jump right in. Our first hero to talk about is Dekker. Dekker has had a couple of changes to her augments. Her old augment, Ionic Surge, this was the one that made her ult's radius increase by 30%, and then some shred on it as well. This has been removed, and it's been incorporated into her ultimate by default, so we love that. So now her ult's going to automatically gain that 30% increased radius, and the armor shred by 15% for 3 seconds if she lands the stun. So that's great. We'll talk more about her ult later. They've also removed another augment of hers, Momentum Boost. This was the one that whenever you use your rocket boots, it granted you and everybody around you 30% decaying move speed over 3 seconds. Rejoice, because that has also been worked into her base kit. So to replace the two augments that they got rid of, we'll talk first about Polarity Strike. This is a new one. Ion Strike, your ultimate, also grants a shield that scales on your magical power and on their missing health to allies for 3.5 seconds. So that is a huge win. It's going to really add to team fight efficiency, and it's just going to make Dekker a little bit more well-rounded, in my opinion. So you guys let me know what you think. The other augment that they are adding to replace the two that they've removed and incorporated into her base kit is Nothing But Net. And this one is all centered around your stasis bomb. When you damage a hero with your stasis bomb, you're going to gain 25 gold right off the bat, and also +1 magical power. So really incentivizing you to hit that. To be honest with you, I'm not sure I see the draw for this over the new Polarity Strike, but to each their own. That's it for her augment changes. We're going to talk about her base stat changes and then jump into her abilities. For base stats, she's had her base HP, her HP growth, her mana growth, and her attack speed all decreased just slightly, and she's had her physical power slightly increased. Her passive now grants Dekker's allies within 1,000 units of her 20% decaying movement speed over 1.5 seconds. So when you rocket boost, this is what we were just talking about with that old augment. They've built it into her base kit. So when you use it, anybody around you is going to gain that decaying move speed for 1.5 seconds. So this is slightly different than the old augment. The augment used to be 30% decaying movement speed over 3 seconds. So I'm assuming they thought that maybe that was just a little bit too overpowered. So we have 20% over 1.5 seconds. So still cool that it's always there built into your base kit, and made room for new augments. So we love that. The next change is to your primary ability, Photon Disruptor. This has seen its damage decreased. It used to be scaling 100 to 100, or 260. Now it is 90 to 250. So just 10 less damage all ranks. Its slow has been adjusted. Instead of being a flat 30% like it used to be, it's now 30% scaling up to 40%. Additionally, the cooldown is increasing. It used to scale 10 to 8. Now it's going to scale 12 to 8. So you have to wait a little bit longer early game. And then a cool quality of life adjustment. The cast animation can no longer be interrupted by crowd control. So when you activate this ability, it is going through. So in summary, we are seeing a little bit less damage, but later game you'll have a better slow, a bigger slow percentage, cooldown increase early game, and you can't be CC'd out of the cast. So some good changes there, I think, kind of make it fresh for her. To your stasis bomb, your alternate ability, this has just seen a damage decrease. So we're going from 80, used to scale 80 to 180. Now it scales 70 to 170. So 10 less damage all ranks. The only other change to Dekker and her abilities is to her ultimate. This has seen a stun radius increased, as we mentioned, to incorporate that augment into the ability. So now instead of 175 units, it is 220 units. Pretty significant increase, especially if you weren't used to running that old augment. And then the cooldown has actually increased by 10 seconds rank 1, 5 seconds rank 2, and it is the same cooldown rank 3. And then additionally, this ability also, you can no longer interrupt it with crowd control. So you're going to be able to secure this cast also. Those are all the changes to Dekker. So if you are a Dekker main, let me know what you think to these changes. And we're going to move on right now to our next hero. We're going to talk about the brand spanking new little rascal, Maco. We're going to start with his base stats, as he has no adjustments to his augments. They have decreased his base HP, his HP growth, his base mana. They're all going down just slightly. His mana growth, his physical armor are increasing slightly, and then his physical power and his attack speed are slightly decreasing. They have made some changes to his abilities in spite of the fact that he just released. The first adjustments are to his primary ability, Maco Gift. This ability no longer costs Maco any HP to cast, but also it's no longer going to passively heal Maco on ability hits, but you can cast it to heal yourself now. So that's where that healing is going to come from instead. Additionally, it now costs mana to cast, so 50 scaling to 70. And the cooldown has been adjusted up. It used to be 7.5 scaling to 6.5. It is now 9 scaling to 6. And the cooldown has been adjusted a little bit higher early game and a little bit lower at max rank. So instead of 7.5 to 6.5 like it used to be, it is now 9 to 6 seconds. Those are the only changes to Maco Gift. So we'll move on to his secondary ability, Maco Fly. This has seen a cost decrease early game. So it used to be 80 scaling to 100. It is now 60 scaling to 100. So it'll be a little bit less impactful to cast that early when your mana is a little bit less compared to later game. Additionally, it's had its cooldown decreased. It used to be 16 scaling to 13. It's now 15 scaling to 11. So more uses all ranks than we had previously. The next ability adjusted is his alternate ability, Maco Sparkle. It has had its cost decrease from 70. It has had its cost decrease. It used to be 70 scaling to 90. It's now a flat 65 mana all ranks. Additionally, it's had its cooldown increased. It used to be 13 scaling down to 11 seconds. It's now 15 seconds flat all ranks. Last change to him is to his ultimate, Maco Strike. It has seen its stun duration decreased. Used to be 0.7 scaling to 1.4 seconds. It is now 0.25 scaling to 1.4 seconds. Really incentivizing that you are charging this ultimate, because the longer that you charge it, you're going to get up to that 1.4 seconds, but a quick cast is going to be a pretty significantly shorter stun duration than we used to have. So just to remind, we're going from 0.7 seconds on the shortest possible charge to 0.25 seconds on the shortest possible charge. Additionally, they've lowered the mana cost of this ability from a flat 150 down to 100 at all ranks. Those are only changes coming to Maco, so let me know what you guys think about those changes in the comments, and we're going to move on to Muriel. Guys, Muriel has seen some incredible changes. I absolutely love the changes that have come to her. So let's take a look at the changes that they brought to her. Out the gate, we have a couple of adjustments to her augments. They have removed the aerial assistance augment. This is the one that made Reversal of Fortune also a cleanse and grant them CC immunity. That's been removed, and instead of that, we have Sacrosanct. This says casting Reversal of Fortune on an allied hero immediately creates a consecrated ground at the current level at the target location. So that ability has been adjusted, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. And when we do, I'll remind you guys about the augment, but this is a really great augment for her. It'll make more sense in just a little bit. The other augment that they adjusted is her Essence Nullifier. It now only applies the mana burn and the bonus damage when Serenity is fully charged. Again, this will make more sense when we take a look at her abilities, but Serenity now has a meter that you are going to be paying attention to, and when it is at full charge, the mana burn and the bonus damage will come through for Essence Nullifier. Taking a look at her base stats, she's had her base HP and her HP growth decreased. Her mana regen has increased. Her physical armor has increased. Her physical power has increased. Her physical power growth has increased, but her attack speed is decreasing just a little bit. The first change we're going to talk about for Muriel is her passive Sentinel. Now, this has been reworked. It no longer grants Muriel or her allies additional on-hit damage, but it's so much better than that now. Instead, Muriel's abilities for enemies, you're going to reduce enemy healing by 25, 35, 45% for 4 seconds, and those benchmarks are at level 1, 7, and 13. And for allies, your abilities now gain 12% plus 0.75% per the target's level, increased healing and shielding for 4 seconds. So that's amazing, because it's just that's gonna scale all the way through the game. So when we have bigger health bars and we're taking bigger hits towards the end of the game, when everybody's full build, our healing and shielding means more, because it's going to be more per the target's level. So this is a great adjustment to her, I think. You guys let me know what you think. Her basic attack has had a bonus physical power scaling increase, going from 55% to 80%, so that's always great. Now, we're going to talk about Consecrated Ground. This is now her primary ability. If you remember, if you were a Muriel player, it used to be her secondary ability. So as you can tell by the video, the ability has been fully reworked. So the effect of the ability is that Muriel sanctifies the ground with angelic light for 6 seconds, and I think that they nailed it the way that it looks. So the cooldown on this ability is 24 scaling down to 18 seconds, and it's going to cost you 80 scaling to 120 mana. Now, talking about the nitty gritty of what actually happens when she casts this. So allies within the zone are going to gain total attack speed, and they're going to restore HP over the duration of this ability. So the attack speed bonus scales from 10 to 20% total attack speed, depending on what level Muriel has the ability. And the health is going to scale on Muriel's magical power. So it's 70 scaling to 150 plus 20% of Muriel's magical power. Enemies that are standing within the zone are going to take damage scaling on Muriel's magical power over the duration and have their attack speed, total attack speed, reduced. So the damage that they're taking is 120 scaling to 240 plus 50% magical power. And the attack speed reduction is going to be 10% scaling to 16%. This is going to be absolutely huge in the laning phase because you can drop this on during a 2v2 skirmish and automatically cut the enemy carry's attack speed by 10, 11.5, 13% attack speed, depending on how many, early on points that you put into this ability. So I think this ability has seen an incredible rework. It's much more effective than it used to be. And I just think that we're going to see this being kind of like the focal point of the kit way more than we ever saw in the past. And then I'm going to bring us back really quickly to the augments. I want to remind you that they have the Sacrosanct ability is when you cast your ultimate, the targeted ally, you immediately cast a consecrated ground at their location. So it used to be, right, that it took forever for us to get over there. We gave that massive shield when we got there, but it took us forever to fly over there. Someone was already dead. Now you're going to immediately cast a consecrated ground at their location as soon as you target them with your ult. So while you're making the distance, while you're flying over there, you're going to be passively healing them and giving them attack speed on that consecrated ground that then you can land in and have some area to work on, right? So super, super cool change. I think that augment is going to be very powerful. The next change that they did is to what is now her secondary ability. It is Alacrity. It's moved from alternate to secondary. It no longer grants attack speed to targets. The shielding on this ability has increased. Used to be 60 scaling to 160. It's now 80 scaling to 240. And the shield magical power scaling has been increased from 25% to 55%, guys. So this is going to shield a whole lot more than it used to. Base shield increase and the scaling has been increased. There's been a bug fix to the ability where decaying movement speed now correctly matches the 4-second duration instead of 3 seconds. It's also seen the decaying movement speed buff change from a flat 20% to 15 scaling to 25%. So 5% less early, but 5% more later. Its cost has been changed. It used to be a flat 50. Now it is 60 scaling to 80. Makes sense because the shielding is much more significant. And the cooldown has also been increased. It used to be 10 scaling to 6. It's now 10 scaling to 8. So you have a little bit more to wait late game. Same cooldown early game. So moving on, we're going to take a look at Serenity. This is now her alternate ability. It used to be her primary ability, but I think they kind of made that adjustment to remind the user kind of the focal point of her kit, which is that new consecrated ground. But let's talk Serenity. So out the gate, we've had a damage change. It's had its damage reduced. It used to be 85 scaling to 225. It's now 70 scaling to 210. So slightly decreased damage across all ranks. It is now a chargeable ability. Okay, so you can charge it for up to 4 seconds. And it reaches its maximum charge after 1.1 seconds. And that max charge threshold is where the burn from the augment comes into play, okay? Additionally, it's going to increase damage by 40% if you reach the max charge. So the max charge damage, flat damage, is 98 scaling to 294, and the magical power scaling is 70%. So a lot more damage, a lot more worth it for you to charge it up to 1.1 seconds. Now, the other half of this ability, because it is not just damage, is it is a piercing bolt, and anyone who gets hit by it is slowed by 35%. Okay? Now, that used to be a scaling slow, 34 to 50%. It's now a flat 35% all ranks. However, when you reach your maximum charge at 1.1 seconds, that slow changes to a stun. So the stun scales from 1.05 to 1.25 seconds. So if you charge it for that 1.1 seconds, you're going to do more damage and you're going to stun the target instead of slowing them. Cooldown is going to increase on the ability. It used to be 11 scaling to 7. It's now 11 scaling to 8. So a little bit longer cooldown late game. And then importantly, it's not use it or lose it completely, because if you charge for 4 seconds but decide not to shoot the ability, it will refund 50% of the cost and 50% of the cooldown. So you're not, locked into spending it. You don't fully reset the ability, but you do get 50% of the resources back. And then I'll go back really quickly to take a look at the augment, just pointing out to you that the max charge damage also drains mana based off the target's current mana. So it's got that mana burn that you won't do unless you're at full charge. So recapping, the full charge is going to do a lot more damage. It's going to stun and it's going to burn off some of your target's mana. So kind of another bonus there to Serenity. The last change to Muriel is to her ultimate, Reversal of Fortune. The shield on this ability has increased from 200. It used to be 200, 390, 580. It's now 400, 650, 900. The magical power scaling on that ability is decreasing. It used to be 120%. It's now 100%. The shield duration is decreasing by 1 second. It used to be 3.5 seconds. It's now 2.5 seconds. But additionally, it now also grants 50% damage reduction to the target ally for 2.5 seconds. Okay, a couple of quality of life changes to the ability as well. Muriel can now see ally portraits, health status, can now see ally portraits and their health status while targeting with this ability. Alongside the normal targeting, she can now also select allies with additional inputs displayed on your HUD instead of trying to like whip around and find them and hope you're clicking the right person and then click. So it's a little easier to target the person you want to target. And this ability can now be cast while falling. So if you've jumped off of a ledge or you've taken the teleporter or whatever it is, when you are falling, you can target people and use your ult. The last change is that the target that Muriel is soaring toward now glows brightly to increase readability of the ability itself. So guys, I can't explain to you how much better Muriel feels. Like, she's always been one of my favorite, even from back in the Paragon days. I am so excited to play her. Support has always been my favorite role. And to a degree, I kind of always felt like picking Muriel was a little bit troll. Don't think that anymore, guys. Her kit is fantastic. So let me know what you guys think about the changes coming to her, but I have a hard time finding something bad to say. Another one that I'm thrilled about is Narbash. I don't know if you guys have seen these changes, but these changes are awesome. So lock in. But a couple of changes to his augments. We're going to talk about those first. Number one, Rhythmic Recharge has been removed. This was the one where he restored mana when taking damage equal to 12% of the damage received. Gone. They've also removed Berserker Beat. This was the one where March also gave Narbash and his allies attack speed. That's gone. Okay. 2 new augments. One I really love. It's called Thonk. When you use your Thunk ability, which is his line, throw the hammer and stun the person, the Thunk falls to the floor only if you've hit an enemy. It falls to the ground, and if you pick it up, if Narbash walks over it, it's going to refund 25% of the cooldown and 50% of the cost. So you're going to be stunning even more often. Love that. The other augment change is a bit more practical. It is to War Anthem. Now, this augment is going to imbue and affect both Song of My People and March, which those abilities have been adjusted, so it'll make more sense whenever we talk about those, and I'll kind of harken back to this when we get there, but just lock in for a second. Song of My People has a green healing song that we're going to go into, but it has now been replaced with a brown physical power song, which obviously is going to grant nearby allies, instead of healing them, is going to grant them physical power, which is going to be scaling 5% up to 15%, okay? If you use March while this song is active, so while you have Song of My People active, nearby allies are going to be granted an additional 5 scaling to 15% physical power for 3 scaling to 4 seconds. Moving on to his base stats. He has had his HP and his HP growth and his mana growth and his physical armor all slightly decreased. So I'm just going to rip that band-aid off. These are minor changes, but they're changes nonetheless. Okay. Taking a look at his passive, it has changed. Used to be called Beat Drop. That's gone. Now he has one called Mosh Pit, which I think is a really cool name. It kind of fits his vibe, very punk, right? So Narbash gains 2 plus 0.5 per level physical power, physical armor, and magical armor for each nearby allied or enemy hero within a 1700 unit radius. So essentially, you're just passively increasing your physical power, your physical armor, and your magical armor for everybody that is around you. So he's just like a team fighting dream whenever you're stacking and fighting, right? This is going to be great. Moving on to his primary ability, March. Again, we just mentioned a little bit about it, but it's had a rework. So March now amplifies Song of My People, okay? So it will provide an effect to nearby allies based on the song that Song of My People is playing, okay? So there is a speed song, which is blue. If it is playing, March is going to grant an additional 15 scaling to 25%, which scales off your 4.5% of your magical power, movement speed to nearby allies for 3 scaling to 4 seconds. So if you've got the speed song playing and you cast March, it's just like an additional burst of movement speed for you and everybody who's around you. If you have the healing song playing, which is green, March is going to grant 10 scaling to 30 plus 10% magical power, additional health regeneration to nearby allies, same duration, 3 to 4 seconds. Okay. So you just have to remember, it really is just an ability that's going to all of a sudden for 3 to 4 seconds, like ramp up whatever it is that you're already passively doing. So whether you're giving people movement speed or whether you're passively healing yourself and everybody around you, you're just going to do that, but even more. Reminding you of the Augment War Anthem, this ability would replace your healing song, your green song. So you'd have the speed song, blue, and you'd have a brown physical power war anthem. Okay. And basically that would be passively increasing physical power. And when you trigger March, you give a burst of additional physical power to everybody that is around you. So really cool kind of way to kind of cohesively mold the kit together. I do want to mention the cooldown and the cost of March. The cooldown is 14 seconds scaling down to 8 seconds, and the cost is 80 scaling to 100 mana. All right, and taking a look at his secondary ability, Song of My People, the cooldown on this is 2 seconds and it costs no mana to use. So the blue song, as we mentioned, is a speed song. It's going to passively grant Narbash and nearby allies 4 scaling to 10% movement speed. And the green song, the healing song, is going to passively grant Narbash and nearby allies 1.5 scaling to 4.5 health regeneration. Okay. The next change is to his Thunk ability. This is his alternate ability. It now deals damage in a very small, they're calling it a very small AoE at the location. So that's cool. And then one thing that I'm a little bit interested to see how it plays out, it now knocks back enemies a very short distance. So I'm interested to see kind of how that plays out, because it's really his primary engage tool. So when you're in that 2v2 laning phase of the game, depending on the positioning of your carry, so if you're in solo queue, rip, but it's kind of pushing the enemy out of danger a little bit when you're stunning them. So there's obviously ways you could make this work. Like if you're running in from river, or if you manage to wrap around behind, you could knock the enemy even further out of position down the lane. But if you're just throwing it forward, you're actually knocking them back toward their tower. So like you're losing a little bit of that engage time. But I mean, we'll see how it plays out. And the cost of the ability has increased. Used to be a flat 50, now it's 50 scaling to 70. So last changes to his Crash Bang Boom ability. This is his ultimate ability. A really cool thing they've done here is that it applies a 5% ramping slow per damage instance, but that slow only stacks up to 5 times, which is 1.5 seconds of the 3-second duration. Okay, so you're slowing everyone around you, a stacking slow for 1.5 seconds, 5 total stacks. Anyone who receives maximum stacks, instead of being slowed, they are now mesmerized for the rest of the ultimate's duration. So if you catch them in the ult from the moment the ult starts and they're staying in it the whole time, you're going to have 1.5 seconds of a ramping slow and then 1.5 seconds of a mez, where they're just going to be walking in toward Narbash. So this could be absolutely game changing inside of an ult. If you cast it at the right place at the right time, you can mez the entire enemy team. So other changes are that it no longer grants Narbash 40% damage reduction while channeling, and Narbash is slowed by 30% while channeling. I think it's a fair trade for the ability to mez the entire enemy team, but it is what it is. The stun after the knockup, so at the very end when he slams one good final time and knocks everybody up around him, the stun has been decreased from 1.5 seconds to a half second. Again, that makes total sense. If people just spent 1.5 seconds being mesmerized, it makes sense that they wouldn't also be stunned for another 1.5 seconds. That's like 3 whole seconds of hard CC. So the total damage of the ability has been decreased from 220, 330, 440 to 50, 75, 100. So big damage nerf there. And the magical power scaling has decreased from 80% to 30%. The final damage instance now deals 50, 75, 100 plus 70% magical power, magical damage. Now, the damage nerf makes sense to me as well, because this is a much more CC-centric ability now than it used to be. It obviously was CC in the past with the knockup and everything, the slow and everything else. But now, the slow morphing into a mez with the stun at the end, this is much more rewarding in terms of hard crowd control. So it makes sense that they would nerf the damage down a little bit. But you guys let me know what you think about his changes. Overall, I think that they are great changes that make him a little bit more interactive, a little bit more fun to use. So let me know what you guys think about that. And we're going to move on to FaZe to take a look at the changes that they've brought to her. She's got no changes to her augments, so we'll just talk briefly about her base stats and then jump into her abilities. So her base HP, her HP growth have gone down a little bit. Her mana regen growth has gone up a little bit. And then her attack speed, her physical power, and her base mana are all decreasing just slightly. Taking a look at her passive, Essence Catalyst, this is just kind of like a good quality of life adjustment. FaZe Blink's availability is now visualized by a pip under her health bar. So you know if you've got if you have the option to use FaZe Blink without having to look at the cooldown or remember if you've got it available or not. There's a little indicator that tells you yes or no. They made a slight adjustment to her basic attack. The damage of this basic attack scales with 20% magical power. So attack speed FaZe. Is it coming back? All right. Psychic Flare, the primary ability, has seen its damage decreased. It used to be 80 scaling to 220. It's now 75 scaling to 215. So only 5 damage reduction across all ranks. Its mana cost is decreasing 10 at all ranks. Moving on to her secondary ability, Energy Lance. This ability now displays the number of slow stacks that an enemy has on them on their health bar for the local player. So they will know how many more stacks they need before they've been stunned. Okay, before they're going to be stunned. The damage on the ability is increasing. It used to be 60 scaling to 140. It's now 80 scaling to 240. So a lot more damage across the game with this ability. And the magical power scaling is increasing by 20%. And the slow is increasing by a whole percentage. Used to be 2.5, now it's 3.5. But the number of stacks needed to root is increasing by 1, going from 8 to 9. A cool change, though, and this is actually a bug fix, which is a little bit tilting, is the slow stacks can now be cleansed. So I think maybe it was always supposed to be that way. Well, it certainly is that way now. The last adjustment is that the mana cost used to be a flat 70. It's now 60 scaling to 80. Okay. So if you're a FaZe player and you love FaZe, she kind of absolutely tilts me off the planet. You're getting much more damage and a better slow. It does take you one more stack to secure that root, but that's not really that much. And the root duration is increasing. So across the board, this ability has seen a good change for if you like FaZe. So now taking a look at her alternate ability, Telekinetic Link. This ability has had some good changes. A lot of them are mostly quality of life adjustments, but they're still great changes. The link range has gone down just slightly. The mana cost is down a little bit. And the maximum tether range for allies is coming down a little bit. And the rest are all quality of life adjustments. So they've added a new color into the tether. If your ally is right at the cusp of that maximum range, it will turn the tether pink. And they have to step back toward FaZe or the tether is going to break. When you pull an ally, you now pull them 30% further behind FaZe's location than we used to. The rest of the adjustments to the quality of life are about the curve, the arc of the pull, to make it look like it's a smoother pull motion. So the flight duration has been slightly increased. The maximum height of the pull has been slightly increased. And then the actual curve has been adjusted so FaZe can pull people up ledges a little bit better than she used to be able to. The last adjustment is that pull now allows the target to maintain a specific velocity after finishing the pull so that it's a little bit less jarring for them. It's gonna feel smoother for the ally that you pull. So all in all, I think the changes to the ability are good. We'll know more whenever we have a larger group, essentially. And the last change to FaZe is to her ultimate, Hyperflux. The cast animation can no longer be interrupted by crowd control. So rejoice, FaZe players. Those are all the changes to FaZe. We have one of my absolute favorite heroes across the board. Look at this new picture. Looks great. But we have some adjustments that are honestly insane, okay, for Riktor. So lock in while we talk about this because these are nuts changes, okay? Augment adjustments. We have removed Brutal Chains. This was the augment that gave Riplash 10% more range. And the successful hits reduced its cooldown by 30%. That's gone, okay? But the range increase has been added to Riplash by default. So not the cooldown reduction, but the range increase is base kit. The other one that they've changed, they removed current overload. This was one that made your electrocute grant 8% more movement speed and deal more damage to monsters. That's gone. So rip jungle Riktor, but that's okay. Instead, we have two new options. We have Warden's Leash. This is obviously for your Riplash ability. Riplash now, I'm excited about this, but I think we are all going to get trolled sometimes. Now you can hook allies, pull an ally back to you. And when you do this with Warden's Leash, you're going to refund 50% of its cooldown and 50% of the cost of the ability. So trolling aside, the one thing that I have thought about with this is whenever you got kind of a front to back situation and people are all stacked up. Now, you obviously shouldn't be behind a whole lot of your allies, but whenever it's a tight quarters situation, I feel like the odds of you accidentally hitting an ally are possible. Like, imagine you got two melee, frontliners just absolutely duking it out, and you want to yoink somebody who's standing behind them, and you accidentally pull, your Sevarog because their frame is enormous back to you, right? The whole flow of the fight is going to be adjusted. So this is going to have to be carefully used, I will say. The next new augment is Zappa 9 chains. Zappo 9 chains. This affects his whip basic attack. Okay. So after casting an ability, Riktor's next basic attack within 3 seconds is going to zap up to 9 nearby enemies within a 650 unit range, and the damage is going to scale based on level and magical power. So this, obviously, I said rip jungle Riktor because of the, losing the 30% damage to monsters, but this will also help if you really wanted to do jungle Riktor. You could probably still pull it off. Okay, that's it for his ability changes. His base stat changes. Your base HP, your HP growth, your attack speed, and your physical armor have all been slightly decreased. Your physical power has been slightly increased. And when I say slightly, I mean by 1. His passive is changing, and it is amazing. Okay, it's called Suspended Sentence. I couldn't believe it when I first read it. I was just stunned. I couldn't even read the rest of his kit. Check this out. If Riktor immobilizes or silences an enemy hero with his abilities, okay, the progression of that enemy's cooldowns are halted for the duration of the crowd control. Okay, so their cooldowns stop for the duration that they are crowd controlled. So let's look through this real quick. Your shock therapy silences for 0.8 seconds. So that silence right there, their cooldowns are not going to progress for 0.8 seconds. Your ultimate immobilizes somebody for 1.25 seconds. Okay. So for 1.25 seconds, while they are stuck and immobilized, their cooldowns are not progressing. I just think that's absolutely insane. So we'll see how it plays out, but that's crazy. His primary ability, Shock Therapy, has had its damage decrease. Used to be 90 scaling to 210. It's now 80 scaling to 220. So a little bit less damage in the beginning, but more in the end. The mana cost has been changed. Used to be a flat 50. Now it's 40 scaling to 60. And this ability cannot be interrupted by crowd control. Your secondary ability, Electrocute, has had its bonus health scaling decrease from 15 to 6%. The magical power scaling has been decreased from 80 to 50%. And the duration of the AoE has been decreased from 5 seconds to 4.5 seconds. The movement speed has been decreased from used to be scaling 10 to 18%. It is now 5 scaling to 9%. The overall damage of the ability has been decreased. Used to be 100 scaling to 260. It is now 50 scaling to 170. But there are a couple of cool changes to this ability, which is it now grants Riktor a shield, which is 20 base, but then it scales with your maximum health and your magical power for 4.5 seconds. So you gain a shield for 4.5 seconds. And while it is active, taking damage causes Riktor to emit an additional pulse of damage in the area at 50% effectiveness. This can only occur every half second, but this is a 4.5 second ability. So throughout the duration of the ability, every half second, if you stay taking damage, you're going to burst out and emit another burst of damage at 50% effectiveness of the damage. So this is a great AoE damaging tool. It's going to give Riktor some survivability with the shield and some movement speed increase. So this is great. Next changes to his Riplash ability. As we mentioned, it does have an incorporated 10% increased distance in the base, but it's also had its max health damage decreased by 1%. So I'll take that change. The last adjustment is to his ultimate ability, his Skewer. The damage is decreasing across all ranks. It used to be 120, 210, 300. Now it's 110, 190, 270. And the magical power scaling is decreasing by 10%. So straight nerf to that ability. But with all the other changes that have come with this, and the fact that when you have enemies immobilizing your skewer, their cooldowns are halted, it's insane. So y'all let me know what you think about the changes coming to Riktor. And we're going to move on to Zinx. Zinx has had no changes to her augment, so we'll talk about her base stacks and then we'll jump into her abilities. Her base HP, her HP growth, her attack speed, and her mana growth have all been decreased slightly. So moving on, and that's it. So moving on to her abilities, her passive Triage Protocol has had just a quality of life change and a bug fix. So the bug fix is that Zinx no longer extends her stack duration when damaging heroes while she has max stacks. So this previously prevented it from going on cooldown at the correct time. They have adjusted this to where it will reliably go on cooldown when it is supposed to. Quality of life adjustment is that when you gain maximum Triage Protocol stacks, Zinx removes any current active basic attack penalty. Her basic attack, Refibrillator, has been adjusted to the damage over time per tick has increased. Used to be 3 scaling to 13.2 plus 0.6 per level. It is now 4 scaling to 14.2. So 1 additional damage across all levels. Your primary ability, Ricochet, the initial projectile no longer has bonus homing towards targets. So that's gone. Its damage is decreased by 10 at all ranks, and the cast notify has decreased from 5.5 to 5.2 seconds. The range is just slightly increasing, and the speed of the projectile is going up by 250. So a little bit of damage has been lost, but you've gained range and speed of the projectile. So I'll take it. Your secondary ability, Bad Medicine. The damage radius has increased by 20 units. The explosion radius has increased by 20 units. The projectile speed has increased by 400. And the gravity on the lobbed toss has increased from 1.25x to 1.4x. When it has traveled 1,000 units, the gravity is going to increase from 1.4 to 1.8x. So kind of pull it back down to the ground. So you just have to get adjusted to the way that it, the way it travels. But the speed has been increased, and so has the gravity. Last changes are to her ultimate, Neural Regenesis. So when you're resurrecting that ally, so when the ultimate triggers, the amount of healing has changed. It used to be 35%, 45%, or 55%, depending on level. It is now not a percent-based heal. It's a flat heal scaling on magical power. So it's 400, 750, 1100, plus 200% of her magical power. Additionally, Resurrection healing now benefits from scaling heal and shield power off of items. So the items that you build are going to further boost the amount of health that your allies come back with. The mana restoration on Resurrection, same thing, has been adjusted from being percent-based to 250, 400, and 550, plus 100% of the magical power. It does not have any other sort of imbuing from, like the heal and shield power, but it's now no longer scaling on a flat percentage. It's now scaling on flat number plus percent magical power. You may be wondering, what about Mourn? We went alphabetically and he didn't show up. So for some reason, Mourn is not on the early access preview. So I'm just going to have to talk to you about Mourn. And you won't see the video of the abilities, but I'll still let you know what the changes are going to be. So they have made an adjustment to his augments. They've removed Contagion Eclipse. This was the one where Eclipse put Contagion on all heroes whenever you activated your ult. This is now baked into the ability by default. Instead, we have a new augment called Night Stalker, which it still affects your ultimate. It makes it to where the bonus move speed granted by Eclipse is increased, so by 80, 160, or 300%, depending on what rank ult you have. So even faster when you trigger it. His base stats have seen some adjustments. His base HP and his HP growth and his attack speed have gone down slightly, but his HP regen growth and his physical power have increased slightly. His passive has seen an adjustment, so his passive Extract, the cooldown has changed. It used to be flat 12, it's now 14, scaling to 8.9 with an additional 0.3 per level. So the later you go, the shorter the cooldown on that passive. His primary ability, Contagion, The cast animation can no longer be CC'd, and the enemy armor shred on this ability has come down 3%. There's been a bug fix on the ability where Contagion now shreds the correct amount of armor instead of being roughly 5 to 15% less than intended. These bug fixes are always so humbling because like, I didn't even know this was going on, right? But apparently it was. So they've lowered the percentage because now it's shredding how much it's supposed to shred. The cooldown has increased on the ability. It used to be 14 scaling to 10. It's now 14 scaling to 11. So just a slight change. His secondary ability, Beguile, this is his mez, has seen some quality of life adjustments where you can now hold the channel at your max charge for an additional 0.6 seconds. So remember, this was so you can kind of time when you want to let that go a little bit better than you used to be able to. Beguile's channel can now also be confirmed by using the same ability input. So that's just functionally nice. Cooldown is increasing. Used to be 14 scaling to 10. It's now 14 scaling to 11. So there's a little bit more late. The damage on this ability has been decreased. Used to be 90 scaling to 210. It's now 80 scaling to 200. The magical power scaling is decreased. Used to be 50 scaling to 45. And then additionally, the charm duration is increasing. Praise. It used to be 0.45 to 1.1. It's now 0.45 to 1.2. Not a big change, but a change nonetheless. And the last adjustment is another bug fix. Mourn's channeling buffs now remove after 0.3 seconds of casting Beguile instead of 0.75 seconds. So apparently we were getting those buffs for longer than we were supposed to. Well, we're not going to anymore. The next adjustment is to abduct. This is your pull. The damage on this pull has been decreased from 90 scaling to 270 to 80 scaling to 260, so very slight adjustment. And again, this ability can now no longer be interrupted by CC. Then the last adjustment is to his ultimate. Again, we have the new augment making you faster whenever you use it, but remember that the old augment where you apply contagion to everybody is by default. So you're going to apply contagion to all heroes on the map by default when you cast your ult. By literally 0.08 of a second, so we're probably not going to really functionally notice that, but that's been an increase. And the animation play rate has decreased from 1.5x to 1.4x. Additionally, Eclipse now goes on cooldown if it is interrupted mid-cast. So all of his other abilities cannot be interrupted anymore with CC. If you get interrupted while casting your ult, you will lose it. It will go on cooldown. So those are all the changes coming to Mourn. I'm sorry that I can't show you his actual tooltips and videos and things like that. I'm not sure why that is, but I didn't want to leave you hanging on the changes that are coming to him. So these are all the changes coming to the support heroes in Predecessor patch 1.12. I want to thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you're still here watching right now and you haven't already, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. We're going to have more Predecessor content coming out. I really appreciate you guys. I couldn't do this without you, and we're trying to grow this all the way to the moon. So thank you, and we'll see you next time.